Hi everyone and welcome to my channel and to this little hand study in soft pastel. If you'd like to follow along in real time, the tutorial will be released soon on my Patreon channel. But if you enjoy this here, then please do subscribe to me here on YouTube. I don't always show my sketching process, mostly because when I sketch things out, I really like to sit right in front of my easel and not slightly off to the side like I am when I'm filming. So for logistical reasons, I tend to not bother filming this part. But I thought that it would be interesting to show this part of the process with hands, because they are notoriously difficult to draw or paint. And they really do have some tricky anatomy going on. So this month on Patreon, I'm focusing on people portraits. Normally, I'm painting a lot of animals, but I've always loved to paint people as well. And hands in particular, actually. When I was in school, I would sit drawing my left hand a lot. It was a handy model, pardon the pun. But in this case, I decided to take some photographs of my right hand, as it's normally my right hand that does a lot of the hard work. And I thought it would maybe deserve a little portrait too. I thought it would be fun to feature one of my unison pastels. And this is a lovely colour, Ocean Blue 4 from Unison. So my line sketch starts very light, and I'm mostly looking at the straight edges of things, trying to create boxes and then work on refining bit by bit. So I'll go into a lot more detail on this process in the real-time tutorial, which is coming out on Patreon. But I thought that I would leave this in and let you see how this started. So as always, I sketch on just a plain sheet of thin drawing paper, and then I transfer that onto my pastel paper. I'm using Pastel Matte for this. It's the Buttercup colour of Pastel Matte, which I'm enjoying at the minute. Especially for people portraits, it adds a nice underlying warmth. So I start with the background, building up the white of the sheet of paper, and the dark shadow being cast from my hand and the pastel stick. I also played about with adding a rough mark just above the pastel stick, like in the photo reference. I think that part came out okay. This was a really fun little piece to work on. Usually when I paint hands, they're part of a bigger portrait. They're usually a bit smaller within the composition. And when that's the case, you don't need to go into a huge amount of detail on them. If you watched my recent little girl holding the tulips portrait, you'll see that the hands are much less detailed in that. So it's really nice to zoom in and do a detailed study of something. And this month I'm going to continue with this theme, as to thank you guys here on YouTube for all of your support. I'm creating a second hand portrait, and that one is going to be released here on YouTube in real time, so you'll get the full tutorial from that one. So I do try to release some real-time content here on my YouTube as well. I'm really grateful for all of the support from my patrons over on Patreon, as without that I wouldn't be making any of these videos. But I do enjoy putting some content out there, some useful content, not just always time lapses. If you haven't explored the rest of my channel, then make sure that you do check out some of the real-time content here, because there are several full tutorials that you can follow along with. So the tricky part of this hand is in the foreshortening. My index finger here in particular was extremely difficult. It's so easy for something to look a bit off or a bit odd in a painting of hands. But I try to break them down looking at the different points where the joints are. And I'm really thinking about the anatomy the whole time I'm painting this, as I can still make adjustments or alterations to my initial sketch. And sometimes it's only when I get the colour in that I might notice that something is a little bit off. So I'm using mostly Unison pastels, but you do see quite a lot of pastel pencil popping up in this one as well. I really like to use the pencils to finish off skin tones especially. But most of the main pigment is going down using the bigger, softer sticks. So I've been busy this month taking photo references of hands. I like the idea of painting a hand that's busy doing something. So the next one that I'm going to tackle is a bit different. It's a male hand next time, and it's playing guitar. So that is something I'm really looking forward to trying because I have never painted a fretboard before. And now I'm going to zoom in quite a lot so that we're just focusing on the area around the hand. But I imagine it's going to be tricky because of the strings and just all the detail on the fretboard behind the hand. So this is the one that I'm going to release here on YouTube if you're interested. That will be coming soon. So please do remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and click the little bell icon if you want to get a notification when I release a new video. So starting to work the details on the thumb and on the fingers. The thumb was tricky because it's really in the shade, as you can see in the reference image. And just like when I'm painting anything, it's often the light and shade that really helps me to create the form. And that's no different here. I purposefully took my photo with very contrasted sunlight. I often find it a little bit easier to paint something when I can clearly see the form picked out by the lighting. So if you're doing something similar like this, when you're taking your photo reference, lighting is really the key. Try to make sure that you light it in a way that it's going to enhance the effect in your painting. And part of the reason that I took this in sunlight was to create some interesting contrast down the back of my hand. I tend to get nice big veins that pop out of my hands when I'm very warm, and I thought that would make quite an interesting challenge. So, finishing touches now on the back of the hand. I really hope that you enjoyed seeing this come together in this short version. Do remember to check me out over on my Patreon channel if you'd like to join in on the real-time tutorial. I'll add links in my description below. And please do remember to subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. But thanks very much for watching this here. And until next time, happy pasteling.